This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, Citizen Reporter here with White Plains Week, our 16th year of doing this program on White Plains Television, joined by Jim Benerofe of SuburbanStreet.com. That is a tough thing to say fast. And Peter Katz, the anchor for all seasons, veteran of every television station on the planet, right?
That's
just
a
about right.
tough thing to say fast, John.
That's right, exactly. Now, to the headlines, Jim Benerofe.
And here are the headlines for July 21st, 2017. White Plains Republicans put Milagros Lecuona for mayor in November 7th election. Alan Goldman, Democratic primary council candidate, nominated by the Republicans for council as part of their council slate of Cass Sibeli and Andrew Custodio. Citizens rally against privatizing Westchester County Airport. Proposals to lease county airport due to be considered in August by legislature. The Department of Housing and Urban Development settles affordable housing dispute. Governor Andrew Cuomo announces final agreement with Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to complete LaGuardia Airport construction. White Plains awaits expressions of interest by developers due early August and proposals for the 4 city-owned parcels in Transit District adjacent to Metro North Station. Peter Katz will have this week's Trump Roundup. Local White Plains High School graduate Alexandra Ambrosi Vieira has supporting role in new White Plains Performing Arts Center production of West Side Story. The White Plains Library Foundation annual gala benefiting the hub at the library to be held October 21st. Tomorrow at Westchester Broadway Theater is Pet Adoption Day from 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
And good evening, too, to all you heat sufferers out there. We know you're hot. John Bailey, and we have the White Plains Week Rollo Newsreel March of Time, which is also double duty today as Shocker of the Week, because the Republican Party of White Plains last Monday nominated Lecuona for mayor. Really a shock, since Milagros Lecuona is primarying Mayor Tom Roach in the Democratic primary. They also nominated Cass Sibeli, Alan Goldman, and Andrew Custodio for Common Council.
Well, both Lecuona and Goldman are longtime Democrats.
Right.
Both had been very active in the Democratic Party until there was a falling out. And so Milagros decided that she would primary Mayor Roach in an effort to get the Democratic City nomination for mayor.
Right.
Goldman, along with 2 others, decided that they would primary the Democratic City Committee's Common Council candidate choice.
Right.
And so now the Republicans, which had been scratching around to come up with candidates to put on the ballot in the local elections.
A monkey wrench into the march to mayor for life.
Indeed they have.
Yes.
Now, Lecuona was standing on the Post Road sidewalk speaking to a small group of her supporters when she made the announcement about going on the Republican ticket. She used the former Scholl's automobile dealership property, where Grid Properties has plans to build a project with some retail and apartments, as a background to demonstrate her argument that too many development projects approved by the city have been stalled for too long.
My opponent sent out a robocall to all the Democrats in White Plains, begging them not sign my petition to get on the ballot. This is actually the least progressive action I have seen from a mayor in White Plains. And guess what? It didn't work for him. It angered many Democrats in this city, and not only did our campaign gather enough signatures to make the ballot, we filed with more signatures than the incumbent mayor, who had the city committee machine behind him. That is unprecedented. Thank you, thank you. His latest batch of negativity and mad throwing at me came yesterday. After seeing the petitions with signatures from thousands of Democrats in this city, he had his campaign manager put out a statement demanding I withdraw from the Democratic primary because I have accepted the lines of other parties in November. His hypocrisy knows no bounds. The additional party lines are the same ones he has proudly accepted in the past. My opponent is focusing on trying to keep me off the ballot instead of doing his job and managing this city. Look at this site. 2 years like this. This is what I call a zombie development. It's lying like this, impacting all the properties in this neighborhood. And there is another one a block from here, and you will find more all across the city. Is this a city that is blooming? Mayor Roach, do your job. Residents are crossing party lines because they want to see change in the city. And I am very honored to see that thousands of people support me, trust me, and are ready to vote for me. In addition, our campaign has been strengthened by the support and endorsements of the Westchester and Putnam Central Labor Council, Northeastern New York Carpenters, the professional firefighters of White Plains, and others coming. Yesterday, another union confirmed their endorsement, and we will make an announcement when we have an official letter. And more to come. So my message to the people of White Plains is simple. I will be there for you, for all of you. I will be listening and learn from your stories. I will be a real leader for all people in White Plains. Together, we can bring about the change that White Plains needs now. Thank you very much.
For you to switch parties. What's your answer to that, since now you have some of the support from Republicans?
I am a Democrat, and I don't need to switch party because it was the Republican and the Conservative Party that came to me and asked if I would go in their line. They never asked me to change parties because they know that I will never do that. And that's even more to say about my principles as a Democrat.
So we all know politicians like to run for office, and if you can't get on the ballot, you can't run for office. So here's one way to get on the ballot.
Yeah, let's take a look at how it sets up right now. Due to the Republican announcements last week, now Milagros Lecuona doesn't really have to win the Democratic primary.
She doesn't even have to conduct the primary.
Right.
She's on the ballot.
She's on the ballot.
Now she has to sign an acceptance.
She did.
It's a form.
She did on Monday.
Okay, so that gets filed,
Yes.
and that means that unless something happens to legally knock her off the ballot at the Board of Elections, which sometimes those things happen, you know.
It happens more often than not around these parts.
She'll be on the ballot.
Yes, and as the slide showed, November 7th, Ms. Lecuona will be on the ballot, as will Mr. Goldman, even if Mr. Goldman wins the Democratic primary.
So, will there actually be a primary? We don't know. Her being on the ballot now may take the steam out of the effort to have a Democratic primary. We will have to see.
They've got council candidates, so wouldn't they?
There are council candidates, but they could very well drop out. We don't know.
They shouldn't, because Goldman would pick up on the the Democratic line. So that is an advantage.
I wouldn't see them dropping out.
I wouldn't see them dropping out at this point either. But that is an intriguing thing on the ballot as of this moment, but we shall see.
The most interesting thing that I find here is that this will bring some life back to the Republican City Committee. This will be a genuine battle for the office of mayor.
Right. Oh, one mention about the property that Ms. Lecuona was talking about. I checked with Mark Weingarten over at the law firm that represents Grid Properties, and he said that nothing has changed with the project. They are still going to do the retail on Post and the townhouses on Maple and the fitness center, and he said that they are looking for financing and trying to organize it at the present time and line up clients to occupy the space. So that's where that stands.
Okay.
Okay, now, there was a rally.
There sure was. The deadline for interested parties to submit proposals for taking over Westchester County Airport and carrying out the Astorino administration's concept for privatization through a long-term lease was pushed back from last Monday to next Friday, July 28th, the day after a public hearing is to be held at the Little Theater at the county center, and that would be on the master plan for the airport. Now, the hearing is scheduled from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Thursday, the 27th, and parking for the county center lot will be free for the event. Before last Monday's meeting of the County Board of Legislators, there was a rally against airport privatization at the county office building.
Activists from numerous groups such as Westpac, the Sierra Club, Federated Conservationists of Westchester, and Indivisible Westchester gathered on the steps of the county office building in White Plains the evening of July 17th to protest the effort by County Executive Robert Astorino to privatize the Westchester County Airport. Jonathan Wang, chairman of Citizens for a Responsible County Airport and a member of the Purchase Environmental Protective Association's Airport Task Force, was one of the speakers.
Neither Astorino nor the Board of Legislators can take away our airport. The airport's owned by us, not JetBlue, not NetJets, and certainly not Rob Astorino.
Another speaker, legislator Catherine Parker, a Democrat.
What is called in government P3, public-private partnerships, which actually should be PU. It stinks. I've seen the Playland deal become a bad deal for Westchester taxpayers. And this is Playland on steroids.
Republican legislator David Gelfarb came out against privatization.
Like many of my constituents, I have grave concerns regarding the proposed airport privatization. I question, for example, whether a 40-year lease is in the best interests of the county. Those of you who know business and know finance and who know private equity know that a 40-year deal is really a sale, and I am gravely concerned about the prospect of selling our airport under the guise of a 40-year lease. I'm concerned about the additional noise that it may bring. I represent the district closest to the airport. The people where I live have the most to lose by any grave changes and environmental damage to the airport. I'm concerned about additional ground traffic. I'm concerned about additional air traffic.
Also on hand, State Senator George Latimer, who received the Westchester Democratic Party's nomination to run against Astorino for county executive.
Once you privatize the airport, you give up the ability to make decisions about airport usage in the public domain, meaning that the Board of Legislators and the county executive would surrender those decisions to a private sector entity. They would receive a certain amount of money and they would lose that control. You have a balance at the airport right now between general aviation and commercial aviation. there's a great demand, I suspect, for more commercial flights. Those commercial flights could, in theory, reduce the ability of general aviation to operate. Now, general aviation means the corporate jets of many of the major corporations that are based here in Westchester County. So we don't know what that mix would turn in, and we'd have no control over that mix if we give that away.
And the Westchester Airport isn't the only one that's been in the news recently. We have one just south of here.
Right. Governor Cuomo announced yesterday the final approval of a lease agreement with Delta Airlines for its new $4 billion 37-gate facility at LaGuardia Airport. That's the overview of the whole terminal. The Delta terminal is on the lower right. And if you have the next slide, you'll have a closer front-on view of what the Delta terminal would look like.
Now, all of this is part of a massive reconstruction of LaGuardia Airport, which sometimes has people missing their flights because of the circuitous route you have to take.
Haven't been there in a while. Allow extra time to figure it out. But it is really good news, and Mr. Cuomo is going to have so many accomplishments by 2020.
He touts LaGuardia Airport reconstruction as one of the major accomplishments of his tenure as governor, as is the rebuilding of the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Right. Now, the HUD suit was in the news. If we can go to the HUD slide, and County Executive Robert Astorino, he announced on the fact that HUD has, surprisingly enough, under a new administrator, said the analysis of impediments material that the county had submitted 10 versions of was finally okay. And
well,
so
yeah, what Astorino presents this as the end of the road here. The deal is between Westchester County Airport and Housing and Urban Development now is firm, and local communities, they say, now have grandfathered in their right to control their own zoning. That bureaucrats in Washington and legislation from Washington really can't affect local zoning anymore.
And George Latimer, the opponent of Mr. Astorino in the fall election, did not think this housing agreement was that great. He thought it should have been announced in July of 2010, not in 2017. And he was annoyed that it cost the county $24 million in community building funds, but who knows, that might be replaced.
Yeah, well, the county did lose some funds. The county had to spend some bucks on legal services, but if the Astorino viewpoint holds up, end of story, finally.
Right. So what do you feel about this this HUD agreement, John?
I actually haven't really looked at the actual agreement in any kind of detail. I think that it's probably, shall we say, politically motivated.
It always seems to be, but this Astorino has effectively taken away a huge issue from the Democrats on this, because it's their affordable housing issue, and it's setting him up well. I preserve your property rights, towns of Westchester.
Well, I mean, the bottom line, though, John, is that this does remove a good deal of uncertainty for many villages and towns.
Yes, it certainly
and perhaps
does.
a city or two. So.
Right. And right now, it's time for a wrap-up of the week in Trumpland.
And speaking of uncertainty, it appears that the Trump White House is trying to find grounds to fire special counsel Robert Mueller. And if they can't fire him, they'll try to discredit him and the experts on his team of investigators. Trump's legal team is reportedly looking for conflicts of interest involving Mueller or his investigators. The Washington Post reports that President Trump has asked his legal team to determine the extent of presidential powers to issue pardons for criminal offenses. According to the Post, Trump wants a ruling on whether he has the power to pardon members of his family, members of his White House team, members of his campaign team, and whether he, Trump, has the power to pardon himself.
Pardon me?
From any crimes he may have ever committed. Now, even Richard Nixon, at the height of Watergate, refused to go down that path, which he felt would be dishonorable, even though his aides Haldeman and Ehrlichman, remember them, tried to get Nixon to at least try to pardon himself and them too.
I had not forgotten.
What
that.
makes the Washington Post even more astonishing in its reporting is that Trump would have no reason to even think about issuing presidential pardons if he didn't believe that people are going to need them to stay out of jail.
Just checking.
And they'd only be out
Just
of
checking.
jail as we speak if they were criminals who had yet to be charged and be convicted. Now, does anyone think that he knows he has done things that are criminal?
See, that's the advantage of being arrested, but you understand how the legal system works then.
And that's why he wants to know if he has the power to pardon himself.
It's fascinating.
Bloomberg News reports that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has widened the probe of the Trump campaign entanglements with the Russians to include Trump's business dealings. Now, Trump, in an interview with the New York Times, warned Mueller to stay away from investigating his business dealings and his tax returns. Remember the Trump tax returns? Oh, I'll release them as soon as the audit is finished.
I thought he'd release
Bloomberg reports that the FBI is investigating Trump's sale of a Florida mansion to a Russian oligarch. Trump bought the mansion for $40 million, never lived in it, and a short time later sold it to the Russian oligarch for $90 million. And the Russian oligarch has never lived in it. What was that money transaction all about, they want to know. President Trump has called the New York Times a failing newspaper. He says the Times reports fake news. He tells his hardcore supporters to ignore the New York Times. He says it's the enemy of the people. In fact, all news media, he says, oh, that would be us too, are the enemy of the people.
Fortunately, he doesn't watch this segment.
His supporters buy it.
How do you know?
So what did he do this week? Mr. Trump invited the New York Times reporters to come in for a 1-hour interview in which he threw Attorney General Jeff Sessions under the bus, blasting Sessions for recusing himself from participating in the Russian investigation. Trump clearly expected Sessions, who proved his loyalty during the campaign, to protect Trump from the investigation. Trump said if he had known Sessions would recuse himself from anything to do with the investigation, he would never have given him the job of Attorney General. Sessions met with reporters yesterday, and said he does not intend to resign. It's believed Trump wants Sessions and Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein out so he can put someone who will fire Special Counsel Mueller in place.
Well, that's Chris Christie.
Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, former campaign manager Paul Manafort, and Donald Trump Jr. are supposed to testify on Capitol Hill the week of July 24th. Coming up, Manafort and Trump Jr. in public. The Mueller investigation has reopened a tax evasion investigation of Paul Manafort, involving foreign money paid to his company and himself, in addition to investigating his real estate deals. President Trump intends to spend most of August vacationing at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. It took a while, but because of excellence in reporting, we found out that President Trump had not one, but 2 meetings with Vladimir Putin when they were in Germany. The White House finally admitted that a second meeting took place. But there's no record of what was said because Trump did not bring any White House staffers, nor his own translator, with him for the second meeting. We don't know at this point what Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is going to do about Trump Care. He may force a vote on something this coming week, but we don't know, especially now that McConnell has lost the ability to try to recruit the vote of Senator John McCain, who was diagnosed with brain cancer. We all wish him well. The surgeons managed to remove what they believe to be all of the brain tumor. However, there is fear that what typically happens is that it microscopically spreads, so McCain will undergo radiation and chemotherapy. Finally, Donald Trump Jr. was interviewed by Sean Hannity on Fox this week, and Don Jr. said he really wants to be transparent, and he proceeded to retell what he had said previously about the meeting at Trump Tower with the Russian lawyer being innocent. Jr. said in the interview with Hannity that he has now told everything there is to tell about that meeting. The very next day, and in the following days, we learned that Donald Jr. was lying to Hannity. There was a lot more to tell about the meeting, including the revelation that at least 8 people were in that meeting, and one of them was a guy who had ties to Russian intelligence.
Yeah, well,
enough?
So much for transparency.
There's more, but I think that's about enough.
It's just, this segment really puts things into perspective, though, for those who would like a perspective.
Some observers believe we are headed for a constitutional crisis which will make Watergate look like child's play.
Well, it certainly looks like it. I mean, there is going to be a clash somewhere along the line. Somebody has to actually file the lawsuit. Who's going to do that, right?
You know, all this business with Putin, first of all, they thought the original meeting was going to be like 30 minutes. It turned out to be 2 hours and 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then this second meeting occurred that nobody knew about. I think that Trump and Putin have known each other for a long time.
Buddies.
And this is my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I just think that I also think I think Putin understands English.
Oh, well, I would think so.
I think he speaks some English also.
I would think so.
Yes, he's a KGB agent at one time. I didn't think to be a good KGB man, you have to know English.
I would think so.
That's right. This is
hey, they know English at the White Plains Performing Arts Center, don't they?
That's
Isn't there something you wanted to plug?
That's right. The White Plains Performing Arts Center is producing the Stage 2 production, and it stars a graduate of White Plains High School and SUNY Geneseo, Alexandra Ambrosi Vieira.
The name of that show is West Side Story.
Right. And
there's another theater in town over in Elmsford, the Westchester Broadway Theater, and tomorrow, Saturday, the 22nd of July, they have Pet Adoption Day. Several shelters will be bringing dogs and cats over there. If you'd like to adopt a pet, you can go over. The show that they're doing is Annie, but you don't have to buy tickets to see Annie in order to go visit and adopt a pet.
Yes. Isn't it somewhat reduced price?
Oh, the Annie show itself? I don't know what
Not the Annie show, the pets.
Oh, the pets. Well, normally shelters do have fees, and I think some of them are waiving all the fees for this.
John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, Peter Katz, good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.